COVID has had many repercussions. And a small one is that I haven't been to a car boot sale for months and months, about 14 months. Well, 3 weeks ago, I did go to car boot sale, and I was amazed that I was actually quite lucky to find a number of cameras. One of the problems with car boot sales is that it is where everyone thinks they are going to buy a bargain camera. So everyone's out there looking for that Leica, which I don't think you are ever going to get, but you do not, yes, you just don't know what might be there. And on this Sunday morning, I discovered 4 cameras. One of them was in this box like this. And initially, when I saw the box, I thought, it's going to be a box brownie. But out of the box, I found this. Now, some of you might know it and some of you might not. It has a very interesting name, I think, and it's called the Agfa Clack. Now, Clack went down well in the European market, but it wasn't a name which sort of sounded good for the American market. So in America, this camera was called, or specifically the US of A, this camera was rebadged as the Weekender or Weekend camera, and it did very well, and it sold in its millions. It was produced, I think, from 1952 to about 1964-65. So it survived until the Instamatic came along and the Agfa Rapid system. It is very much of a bog standard, happy snapper, entry level, basic, holiday snapshot, cheap camera. And sort of along the box brownie line. However, I think this has some really interesting design features. Yes, it's a little bit more like a box, but I would say it's very much like people were looking for as cameras. It hasn't got any folding out. It's more modern than that box looking shape, don't you think? The lens is a straightforward lens. We have 2 options. We do have B or M, I think, for manual. The shutter speed is quite slow. It's a 30th of a second, which I thought was going to be a problem because I'm, to be honest, not very good at holding cameras really still. But it feels that the camera is quite ergonomic. It's extremely light. It's easy to hold. If we look in, if we take the bottom off, we see we have a huge 6x9 area here for the film, which is the same as the box brownie. And one of the ideas of these cameras was that you could print your print at home, which a lot of people did. End prints, printing from a contact frame, was a popular pastime. You could obviously get the same thing done in a shop. You needn't have enlargements. You could just get the size of the negative, what we call contact prints. Notice as well the camera curves. This is deliberate. There's no back plate on here. The tightness gets that curve of the film, and that was to counteract, I believe, some of the curvature in the lens. So we've got an interesting design here. Notice these prongs here. Have you seen those before? I think you might have done. They are very similar to the ones you get in the Diana camera. Is this the beginning of the Diana camera? It has some similarities to the ISO camera, and which I've talked about in other videos. Now, getting back to this design. So, it takes 120 film, which is easy to obtain today. Nice locking mechanism here. Nice viewfinder on the top. Simple spring shutter. Good clear viewfinder. It's not a focusing lens. But we do have, if we look at the one control we have here, we can see we have one window which says cloud and 1 to 3 meters, and the other for 3 meters and sun to infinity. Now, from what I can make out, it's a larger aperture when it's on cloud and 1 to 3 meters. Then we have a mid-range for cloud, and then we have 3 meters to infinity and a smaller aperture. That's quite interesting, I found. So it does look like we've got at least 2 apertures, and I do wonder if there's a slight supplementary lens for when we are closer up. I'm sure some of you will advise. It doesn't look like that from what I can see, but I do just wonder, because the 2 apertures look exactly the same, so I think there might be a supplementary lens there. But what we can tell is that this is an interesting camera, and I was fascinated to see how it would perform in the field. I wasn't expecting it much. Let's see how I went on with it. The first photograph I was really pleased with. We have this good 6:9 image. The contrast is excellent. The sharpness I was delighted with. Yes, there is a bit of softness at the edges, but it is not bad. And again, putting it in portrait mode, again, I really like this shadow on the left hand side, and considering this is a fixed aperture, I was pleased with the result. I think it does help that we are using modern film. I'm using Formapan here, Formapan 100, developed in ID11. Again, this is a nice exposure. What really surprised me was how the 1/30th of a second didn't seem to prevent a good image. I think this camera is so light, it's actually ergonomic. We have got a little bit of light coming in here. I think this was, although the back is nice and tight, when I did open up the camera and took the exposed spool out, it had slightly sprung a little bit. So there's a little bit of light getting in there, but it's acceptable and it's not a bad image. Moving on, again, this is sharp, it's clear. This camera is really well designed. I think they've got the aperture just right. I think it is a supplementary lens if you move closer than 3 meters. So that means the infinity lens is really very sharp. Here we are at Kimmeridge Bay in Dorset, which is famous for having a oil field and a nodding donkey. But again, a nice sharp image. Count how many photographs. We are up to 7, and again, this is a usable photograph of Kimmeridge Bay. I was surprised that on this film, remember, you only get 8 images, but I did get 8 usable images. That doesn't happen often when I'm testing these type of cameras, normally because of camera shake. There's normally a reason why some of the images can't be used. So I was delighted by this camera, delighted and surprised. So if you find an Agfa Clack, or if you find an Agfa Weekend, don't dismiss it as a piece of plastic. Think of it more as an art form in its own self, and a good picture making opportunity. If you find one, why not have a go? Thank you.